Hey guys, gonna try to do this video real quick without any interruptions. There's a family that I clean for, and I had been going through their pantry and cleaning out all the expired food, stuff like that, stuff that they shouldn't be consuming. And the wife had their bread had molded, and the wife had said, that they weren't used to looking in the pantry, but she appreciated me putting the soft drinks and stuff in the pantry because then it was a conscious decision to go get them. And because I had done that for them, they hadn't consumed as many of the soft drinks as they usually would have. And I got to thinking, because I believe there's a lesson in everything, and everybody has something for you. You just have to be willing and open to receive it. So her saying that to me got me to thinking, I want everything I do to be a conscious decision. Everything I say, everything I do, everything I consume, I want that to be something that I chose, not something that I did on autopilot. And after trying to be more aware of myself, my actions, my thoughts, I've realized, there's just a lot of people out there on autopilot. And they do things, and me too, I'm still doing things that I wouldn't normally do, or thinking about it, I would have taken a different course. But I'm so used to being on autopilot. It's kind of crazy how much control something about me had that wasn't me, I guess you can say. Because of all the awareness I'm trying to, make and stuff, and just bringing stuff to my attention, there was, in the whole, there's a lesson in everything. I got to thinking, something that just really irritates me is laziness and procrastination. And a lot of times I do procrastinate, but it's not a conscious procrastination. It's more of a unconscious procrastination. Like, I could just, things completely slip my mind. They have to be like extremely important and urgent and just like right in my face for me not to forget it. And some stuff, I feel like smacking my head up against a wall about, because it's just like, how could you forget this? This was so important. But trying to take more awareness in what I'm doing has forced me to look at some of the not so nice things about myself. And the laziness, that I see, and laziness it's just something that just gets up under my skin so bad. And I've been reading about, shadow work and what exactly it is. And it turns out that I've been doing shadow work for a while now, just not knowing the names. And there's a lot of stuff, that I've been doing or been trying to do, or I feel is necessary, and I didn't know there was even a name for it. I was just, using the terminology of I'm working on myself. So in the shadow work part, I was reading about it, and it said, anytime there's just something that really gets up under your skin, it's because there's something in you, and we're only a mirror. Our whole lives are just projections of what we perceive. So with that being said, I got to thinking, and I was just like, I'm not lazy. I'm probably one of the most hardworking people I know. Whenever I set out to do a task, I try to make sure it's a job well done that nobody can complain about, especially going into people's houses and cleaning their houses. I know I've heard, people say like, oh, they'll put a string somewhere just to see, like on the windowsill, just to see if you wiped it off. So I always try to make sure I touch all the bases, just in case somebody does do that they know, like, I took the time and it was worth the money that they were paying me, because I tried to examine everything, or I tried to, just make sure it was a job well done. And I got to thinking, if I've never been lazy, and I'm such this hard worker, then what is it in me that gets so irritated about laziness? And it took me back to my childhood. And whenever I was with my mom and my dad would, I was really forced to work. It's probably where my work ethic came from, was being forced to go tend to a garden for 7 hours whenever I was 5 years old, to not have much time for play, which it kind of hurt the older I got, because I didn't see playing as beneficial, or as, any kind of entertainment as beneficial to your health at all. I felt like that life was just work, 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 and if you don't work hard, you never accomplish anything. So in my 20s, I started realizing, I've been working my whole life and I really don't have much to show for it other than I'm tired. So I started, getting some friends, trying to hang out with some friends and stuff. It was more of a party scene than anything, but entering into some type of playfulness, in your 20s, usually it does involve bars and stuff. But, I also did stuff like hiking and tennis with my children. We would go run. So, going back to my dad, he felt like that my brother was something special that shouldn't have to lift many fingers, that the woman or the women in his life should cater to his beck and call and, be whatever he wants them to be, or just, he had this whole, like, I don't even know the term, like, egotistic approach to females, I guess you could say. So whenever we went into foster care, there was, they were like, oh, go outside and play. And here I am trying to do dishes and fold laundry. And they're just like, you're a kid, go play. And I'm just like, I didn't know what that meant. And whenever I went to go live with my grandmother, I had been introduced to, a more childlike atmosphere for a little while. So it was just like, oh, okay, so let me go play. So I began to dabble in what play meant. And granted, around this time, I was probably like 11 or 12, and I was trying to play with Barbie dolls because I had never played with Barbie dolls. And I realized whenever I was younger, it was something I really wanted to do, but I never had a Barbie doll. And there was never the time to play with a Barbie doll. So whenever I was at my grandmother's, because we had had such a rough life, she often bought us things that we didn't necessarily need. And because she had seen that my brother had basically gotten the benefits of being a boy just by being a boy, and it was me who like suffered a lot of the repercussions from my dad. So it's almost like the tables turned. And my brother was then forced to work, and there was not another male figure in the house. It was just my grandmother, me, and my little brother. So he was basically treated like a man, like, oh, you go outside, you work all day, I'll fix you lunch, you come in, and then you go right back out and you work. So she would constantly find things outside for him to do. One summer, he cleared out. The backyard was where she had lived at was very overgrown, and with a swing blade, he had cut away at the whole thing in a summer, and it was probably a good like acre and a half. So it was a lot of work for an 8 to 10-year-old boy. And she just constantly, picked at him. And at first I was thrilled because it's like, okay, well, finally somebody likes me. Finally somebody's on my side. Finally I'm not the one being mean. I'm not the one being mistreated. So whenever we were with my parents, he would pick at me like, oh, daddy hates you, he loves me, and there was this, or look what I can get by with, and you can't even breathe without getting beaten, so it was this constant like picking at me about it. So whenever we went to go live with my grandmother and the tables flipped on him, I started picking at him about it. And I remember several times like sitting on the porch or playing with other little kids, because she used to babysit, so there was kids our age there was younger kids, and it became kind of my job to look after the younger kids. But if you're looking after younger kids, then you're playing. So I mean, I guess you can consider it was a type of work, but it was more play, and I didn't look at it as work. So I remember sitting on the front porch playing with the other little kids, and I just looked and I was thinking, man, he has it so bad, like I feel so bad for him. And I remember shortly after, whenever my grandmother would start, picking at him and stuff, like my dad would do me, it just really got under my skin, and I told her to stop. I didn't like it. And I started telling my mom, writing my mom letters because she was in prison, about how I didn't feel like my grandmother was treating him fairly. But sitting there watching him work so hard while I played was something that really just struck me as wrong. So whenever I look at laziness, it almost brings me back to that wrongness. That that feeling I felt whenever I was sitting there watching him work so hard while I didn't have to do anything besides play with some children. So maybe laziness, since I understand, I do have the understanding that we just project and we're just in a mirror. And if I find something in someone else that I despise or I dislike or that makes me uncomfortable, I know it's in myself. And laziness was something that I questioned for so long. And this is probably a year now that I've questioned, what is it about lazy people that get under my skin? What is it about procrastination that gets under my skin? And it's that. Because I sat there and I knew I was in the wrong, I should have went to go help him. Or I should have spoke up about the way I felt, the way my grandmother was treating him. I should have said, hey, I don't like this. This reminds me too much of my dad. I never had that conversation with her. I just had these outbursts of this is wrong. So I've noticed too, something that irritates me is people projecting on me. There was a girl not too long ago, her boyfriend had hit her in the face. And then, like a couple weekends later, I had called her, and then she tried to say that I was putting her in the middle of drama and all this other kind of stuff, and that she didn't like that, but the weekend before it was her that did me like that. And I wasn't trying to put her in any kind of drama or anything. I was just trying to give her a heads up, like, hey, there's something that might progress to something else, so I'm just letting you know. And whenever she called her boyfriend, she said that she didn't like how I kept putting her in drama and causing her to, have all these negative emotions and stuff. And it's just like, I didn't do that to you. You did that to me, And so I ended up unfriending her on Facebook just because I was thinking, no, I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to allow people to be in my life that's going to, project on me. But then I read that article about the shadow, and it's just like projection is all we do as people. And whenever we no longer have a, a battle, I guess, with a situation, or whenever we don't have a battle with a trait or a despise towards a trait of someone, it's because it's no longer in us. So hopefully that solved. I ended up knocking 2 things out on my healing list, or my personal work, or my shadow work, I'm hoping. But y'all have a good rest of your day, and talk to you soon. Bye.